Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good following morning, everybody. It is AMA number 15, and actually today, very rarely, surprisingly, I do know the date. Today is July 2nd, and in a second, I'm going to explain why I know the date. As we know, I generally do not know the date, especially in Corona time, but today I am fully aware of the date. It is AMA number 15. Of course, unbelievable that we've been doing this for 15 straight weeks. Corona's been has been going on that long. Time has lost all meaning as the world has started to open up and then close back down in the US and generally open up here. I'm going to talk all about that. And soon we're going to get to my very, very special guest, really somebody who's become an absolute incredibly close friend of mine, a mentor to me, a guru to many, Rabbi Michael Paley. We're going to get to him in a few minutes, but first we'll talk about a little bit about what's going on in Poland, say hi to some people. Good morning, Victoria Warner. Hi, Saul from Seacliff. Good morning, Linda. And hi, Ola. Good to see you guys. We can jump right. Oh, the rollouts are in the house. Lori at East Coast time. Jeffrey and Lori after the red eye from California. Good morning, you guys. They are in town for Jeffrey's father, Zygmunt. Zygmunt Rolat's 90th birthday. Zygmunt, a pillar of Jewish life in Poland, big supporter of many, many things in Poland, including the Polin Museum, where he's really one of the founders, Jewish Culture Festival for many years, JCC Krakow, and Zygmunt, a Holocaust survivor from Częstochowa, celebrating his 90th birthday yesterday, which of course always reminds me how strange it is right now that the festival is not going on because Zygmunt is just about always down here in Krakow, for his birthday. We celebrate together. Oh, I'm not supposed to mention that Lori and Jeffrey's quarantining. Of course you are. Good morning. Hey, Dan Winnick. Hey, Dan. Kasha Leonardi. Oh, I know you, Kasha. Marcel. Hello, Marcel, our hero, Marcel Zielinski, Holocaust survivor, Ride for the Living participant who had his wedding anniversary yesterday. And I have my wedding anniversary today. Hi, Rabbi Avi. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I know the date, because today is July 2nd. Yes. July 2nd, my wedding anniversary, third anniversary. So I remember the date today. Usually I have no clue. I want to take a second, how everybody says they're the luckiest guy in the world. This one's the luckiest one in the world. I think everybody that knows me and Kasha fully understands that I am just about the luckiest guy in the world to be married to somebody really wonderful, who's not only a great person who I love, but who really makes me, I think, the best person that I can be. So without getting all sappy and weepy, there we go. See who else is there. Hi, Michelle. 14th anniversary today. Michelle Bannon, that's right. We have the same anniversary. I remember that. Happy anniversary, you guys. Great to see you. Lori, I will ask our guest speaker a question once I get to our guest speaker. Don't get ahead of things, Lori. You know how it works. I blab for a few minutes and then we bring on the guest speaker. Let's behave ourselves. So what's going on in Poland? The EU borders have opened as of yesterday, not only to the EU. I think there are 15 countries outside the EU that Poland, that there are flights coming in and out going to. Switzerland, Albania, Canada, Japan, South Korea, and then European Union countries within, except Sweden and Portugal. Now, which is the one? There are two glaring countries for all of us, but particularly, certainly for me personally, those countries that are not on the list are Poland, Israel, and the United States, which huge problem. So that means Americans cannot come to Poland right now, and nor can Israelis. So this is an issue. We were very much hoping that those countries would open up. We were supposed to be in the US many times, including next month, hopefully Israel, still holding out a bit of flicker of hope to be in Israel next month, but that's where we are. So Europe is opening up. Cases are not skyrocketing here. The level has been maintained. Most of the new cases in Poland are still in that same Silesia region that I talked to you guys about before in the southwest. Krakow is doing okay, and we continue to see what's going on in the world, and are very concerned that will not happen here. That the fact that Corona stayed low in this part of the world in Central Europe will continue. Big news this week was the Polish election held on Sunday. That was the first round, by the way, something that should just be automatic everywhere in the world, which is a day off, elections not on a work day. In the United States, having elections on the Tuesday, to me, it's let it be on the Tuesday, but then give everybody a day off. I think if the idea of democracy is for as many people as possible to vote, then let's make it as easy as possible for people to vote, which they do in many, many places in the world, and the United States is not one of them. So I don't want to go down this deep dive about American democracy at this point. We can talk about Polish democracy, the state of Polish democracy. So the presidential elections in Poland, it's a system where if you have as many candidates as there are, and if nobody gets 50% from the presidential candidates the first round, there's a second round. So the incumbent, Andrzej Duda, from the right-wing / pretty far right-wing party, officially the president is not part of the party, but he is aligned with the Peace Party, Justice, Law and Justice Party. Who's the incumbent, who got about 42% of the vote, and Rafał Trzaskowski, a very strong candidate who is the mayor of Warsaw, young candidate, early 40s, mid 40s, progressive mayor of Warsaw, got 30.4%. TV host, also sort of center-left, in the center, Szymon Hołownia got 13%, and somewhat upsettingly / very upsettingly, Krzysztof Bosak, from representing the sort of confederation of far-right, and I mean far-right parties, got 7.4%. So the takeaways really are that the president didn't get 50%, so there'll be a second round. The second round will be between the incumbent Andrzej Duda and the mayor of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski, and that the far-right, extreme right candidate got over 7.5%. And most upsetting about that number is that among young people, let's say 18 to 35, he got really a very high percentage of the vote, over 20%, which means that, it's not that, older people are only, sort of very far right views and young people are being more progressive. It's a little bit the opposite in many ways in Poland. So that's worrying. How does it break down for the second round? So there will be a second round of voting on July 12th. That's not this Sunday coming up, following Sunday. It breaks down pretty evenly. I think that the president, if you kind of see who would generally align themselves with the incumbent Andrzej Duda, he does look like he has an easier path to getting over the 50%. But depending on how it shakes out, how the different candidates kind of encourage their voters to vote, the mayor of Warsaw does have a chance. So we'll see. I see Tomek Cybulski, his 15th anniversary today. Yeah, a lot of people have these great anniversaries. So happy anniversary 15. You guys are a little bit ahead of us. As I said, Marcel's about 60 years or so ahead of us, but we're Kasia and I working to catch up. So the second round of elections will be on July 12th between Andrzej Duda and Rafał Trzaskowski, the far right candidate versus the more center candidate, and we will see. Certainly, I think most people within the Jewish community are in favor of the challenger, of the opponent, Rafał Trzaskowski. That's just generally how it breaks down. So that's where we are. It's a sort of very big, interesting time in terms of that, with the elections, a very high turnout, which was encouraging and sort of very interesting. You think with Corona, there might not be a high turnout, but I think it was maybe the second highest turnout at this stage since the end of communism. So very, very high turnout. So looked good. Always want to see people coming out to vote. In my opinion, it's crazy that people don't vote as much as they should. democracy has a price. The original ideas of democracy were never that everybody just gets the benefits of democracy. Democracy has a cost, and participating in that democracy and being a good citizen is the cost of that democracy. So I think I said it before, but I like the Australian model where you have to vote. They make you vote. So that's the election. What else is going on? In terms of what I've been watching or reading, haven't been watching really too much, nothing interesting. I am reading a good book called The King of Warsaw, called Król in Polish, by Szczepan Twardoch. Story about a boxer, kind of a sort of a gangster story set in 1930s Warsaw, pre-war Warsaw, a Jewish gangster boxing story. So a lot of things that are sort of interesting to me. I was always interested in anything kind of gangster and boxing and mafia-ish, although it's Jewish, Polish, or just Polish mafia before the war. But it's a good book that I'm enjoying. And yeah, so I haven't been watching too much. If you guys always want your suggestions, anything good I should be reading or watching, Netflix or HBO or Amazon, please comment below. I never know what to watch. Kasha and I, every day, we're like, what should we watch? What should we watch? Should we watch a movie? Let's watch an old movie. No, it's too late. We'll fall asleep. And then we just wind up watching whatever crap Netflix pushes at us. Good morning, Sue Ellen. Heading out with a few more miles. Getting to 120. Good for you, Sue Ellen. Good for you, Sue Ellen. Are you in Cleveland or are you in Aspen? Where are you right now? I know you were in Aspen before. Ola Conyer, you read the book. Let me know what you think. Sex in the City. Have watched have seen some episodes of Sex in the City. Funny about Sex in the City, Bria, is that when I was in the army in Israel, for some reason, it was always on TV in this base that I was on. We had nothing to watch and nothing to do. So all of us in the army essentially got addicted to Sex in the City, which is a strange thing while you're on a base in the middle of Gaza to be watching. Atypical. I did check it out and I'll give it another shot. Vicky. Big news here at the JCC. This, as we know, JCC has been closed for 4 months almost. The kids, Friday, the preschool has been open for the last month. And yesterday, for the first time, we had our seniors, our Holocaust survivors, back in the building. So we invited our seniors for a couple hours yesterday outside. It was very nice weather, so don't worry. We're not putting them at risk at all. They came in the gate. We washed their hands. We gave them a plastic shield. I'm not sure what those are called, but I'll call it a plastic shield. And we had our seniors. We had about 15 or 20 of our seniors here in the JCC in the courtyard, schmoozing, catching up with each other. It was incredible for me. Really the best day that I've had in a very, very long time, having our seniors back in the building. We should remember the reason the JCC was founded was to take care of Krakowian Holocaust survivors. And while our mission has expanded so much over the years, over the 12 years, we are always mindful that it is our primary mission to take care of Polish Holocaust survivors. So they came in yesterday for a couple hours. We're going to try it again next week, assuming things continue to go well. Then maybe after next week, we will start to have the seniors a bit more regularly in the building. There's always questions about my sign collection. So I did get a new sign this past Sunday at the flea market. This is a cool old, well, I like it. To me, cool old sign, which says, what does it say? W razie pożaru dzwonić. Well, in case of a fire, you should call either the fire department or the ambulance, or what's cool, because it's from during communist times, call the militia. So you don't really have a militia these days, but that was a communist thing. So this old communist sign that I picked up, which I'll add to my growing sign collection. Please remember, any of you, if you have any signs at home that you're not using, sitting in a basement, feel like donating them to the good cause of Jonathan, or if you walk past, you're on the street, nobody's looking, see a street sign, grab that sign and take it home and send it to me in brown paper so nobody knows what you've done. And we're all good and we're all the richer for it. And that's generally where we are in terms of catching up. So I hope I didn't speak too fast. I like to speak at, generally speak at full New York speed. New Yorkers out there won't notice anything strange about that. Rest of the world, why is he speaking so fast? Anyway, it is my great pleasure to get to my guest, today's guest, special guest, somebody, as I said, who has become a very close friend of mine, somebody I learn a lot from. I would call him a mentor, somebody who is really an inspiring figure for many, many people. Rabbi Michael Paley, He was the scholar in residence at UJA for 20 years. He is a rabbi. He was the Jewish chaplain at Dartmouth, a dean at Bard College. He taught Jewish studies there. He was the university chaplain at Columbia. He founded the Edgar Bronfman Youth Fellowship Program, which is a big, very important thing. He is an expert on medieval Islam, and he is a baseball. He is an expert on pretty much everything that you can think of. He is a Ride for the Living participant. He is a board member of JCC Krakow, and he is now living in Budapest, where he's running the Tarbut program and developing lay leadership and working for our good friends and partners, the JDC, the Joint. So without further ado, welcome my friend, Rabbi Michael Paley.
Thank you, my friend, Jonathan Ornstein.
So straight away, very important question I have for you. Which way does a neutrino spin?
So the neutrino spins counterclockwise. That's a significant thing. Why is that? They don't quite know.
No idea. Let me just point out that I'm not trying to test the good rabbi's knowledge of things, although it's hard to find a subject he doesn't know about. That is actually from a story that when Rabbi Paley met the Lubavitcher Rebbe and he asked him that very question, knowing that you had physics knowledge, and that meeting with the Lubavitcher Rebbe changed your life. Tell me about that meeting.
So remember that the Lubavitcher Rebbe asked me the question about neutrino spin. He had a physics and an engineering background, and it's a really hard question because there's no particular reason why the neutrino should spin in a counterclockwise way. Certainly they didn't know in 1972. I think he just wanted to get me. So it was an amazing moment for me. I was in the middle of having a crisis in faith. My teacher, Rabbi Zalman Schachter, who was then in his 40s, today weirdly is his yahrzeit. He was a Polish-born Jew who grew up in Vienna and then came to America in the middle of the war and really founded what I would understand to be the renewal movement. Came out of the Lubavitch, out of Chabad community, but really took the outreach piece of bringing people closer, Mikarev, closer to the Jewish people. And he would go to anywhere, ashrams and all sorts of things, to meet the people where they were. That was a critical thing for him. And he said, you need to meet the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was at that moment at a point of falling out with Lubavitcher Rebbe. But, you know, Zalman wanted to help you no matter what. And so he took me to 770 Eastern Parkway just before a late Shachris, right? They daven kind of late in Chabad. And as the Rebbe was walking into the davening, Zalman just guided me towards him, and then he asked me physics questions. It was the most surprising thing. I could never have imagined that. And the physics questions started to crash on my head, and I felt my mind speed up, and kind of I had this unique religious experience. It felt like a day. They was asking me questions. It probably was 2 minutes or 3, and then I just sat on the bench for like an hour, an actual hour, to recover, and I think I'd never been the same.
People like me, especially, are particularly skeptical of many aspects of spirituality and this idea of holiness. But if there was ever somebody who was really holy in the last century in the Jewish world, a good case could be made that it was the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
You know, I think Ben Gurion was holy. I think Buber was holy. I think that Rosenzweig was definitely holy. But yes, I think Lubavitcher Rebbe was great, Holy Spirit. Did you get $1? I was 20 years old.
Pre-dollar?
It was 1972. It was pre-dollar. He gave dollars to people that walked by him. He spent about 4 or 5 seconds with them. Right. Me, I got minutes.
I only got $1.
I have to tell you though, my friend Susan Handelman, who's a Jewish philosopher, went to go get $1 from him, and she had exactly the same experience I had, even just kind of being with him for 4 seconds.
No,
he was like almost like a window into the next world.
Fascinating. It's fascinating how people like that really have this sort of energy. I think that I never used to believe in any of that, but this idea of an energy, you don't even need to necessarily speak with them, and some people have this special energy, and that's my understanding about him.
Yeah, I think you feel it in places. In Jerusalem, you can feel it. You can feel it in Assisi. Probably you can feel it in Benares. You can definitely feel it in Kazhimesh. It's no doubt. Probably right next to the Temple Synagogue. I think that's where the center of it is.
The chakra.
It's a chakra. It transforms you. You go to Krakow. Who would think Krakow of all places? But there, it's a transformative place.
Who would have known? So I'm gonna jump. We're gonna jump around a little bit. I don't want to go because it's so fast. I want to get to so many different things with you. And for us, we know that when we speak to each other, just regularly speak to each other, we have to always state our topics in the beginning to make sure to get to them, because you and I will go off on incredible tangents. So we'll try to see how it goes today. But I'm already thinking I might need to bring you back for a second episode.
I promise to go on tangents, though. It's my best thing.
Absolutely, please do. So I want to say. Most U.S. rabbis, upon retirement, I'm going to venture a guess and say, do not move to Central Europe. Tell me about that decision.
I had come, Annie and I, my wife and I, had come and lived in Budapest in 2012, 2013, where I met the lovely Jonathan Ornstein and Kasia and all these other people at a Limud, Poland. And then we came to Krakow. We didn't know why. We just decided to come. First of all, I must have drank some water or potion because I just could never get it out of my mind after that. So one of the reasons I came back was just the enormous pull it has on me. But the second thing is that if I think this is a serious answer to the question, if I think about the Jewish world, I think about America as Jewish religious place, Protestant Catholic Jew, and I think of Israel as a national Jewish identity, Israelis, Egyptians, Jordanians. I think of Central Europe as a kind of a missing piece in the conversation. It's the cultural piece, it's the awoke piece, it's the piece that has deep memories and real commitments, but also a vision for the future. The Budapest Jewish community between 1880 and 1930, let's say, was the greatest contributing Jewish community to the secular world that the world has ever known. Physics and philosophy and photography and all these kind of things. So I wanted to come back here after I retired. Annie and I came together to start a program to try and mine some of the incredible talent that's here. There are like 120,000 Jews that live in Budapest. And also we're doing a program in Poland because Poland is a treasure chest of talents and the abilities that the Jewish community needs. Just the last sentence is, there's a certain energy that you get from reawakening. When you awake in the morning, it's one kind of energy. But if you take a little nap and you're reawake, it's a different energy. And I'm 67. That's the energy I want.
You told me when we first met, I remember that you told me something that stuck with me, and it's a line that I've used. I always feel that when you're lucky enough to be friends with great people and great minds, you should steal as much as you can from them. I think there's a great Jewish tradition for that. So I shamelessly steal from all my friends, and you're up there on the list. So you said that in this world, this sort of bipolar Jewish world, which is very much North America or the US really, and Israel, you feel that the next great ideas are going to come from the periphery. And that this is really one of them, this sort of almost forgotten part of the Jewish world that was almost left for dead after the Holocaust, and then communism is such fertile ground. Which I don't think you had yet in your head when we met in 2012, that where your life would take you, but you were on that path already in some sense.
My first job as a rabbi, praise be to God, was as the rabbi and associate chaplain at Dartmouth College. That had been my life goal, to go to Dartmouth College, not to go as a student, but to work at Dartmouth College. And here I am, I'm 27 years old, and there I am at Dartmouth College. And I started a thing called the Conference on Judaism in Rural New England, because these were Jews from the margin. And these were amazing Jews. They were just marginal. And then I realized that the Hasidim, they were marginal Jews, People, they lived in little towns where the wagon always broke down, and the tzaddik was unknown or hidden. And the Tzfat Jews, they were marginal Jews, and the Spanish Jews were at the end of the Jewish world. So I guess A, I have an attraction to the margins, and B, I do think it's creativity. The creativity will come from the margins. That's
I just want to.
That's what I always thought.
Some of your disciples chiming in. Tina Newman.
I still read her real estate reports.
Dan Winnick, Vicky Warner. You have a lot of fans out there, Michael.
I'm so happy to hear from my UJA friends.
Exactly. But maybe this idea, if you would make the case that, you know, that a lot of the energy and good thought or sort of creativity in the Jewish world will come from the margins, but maybe if you think how much the Jewish contribution to the world, Jews have always been themselves at the margin. So maybe this is a continuation of this idea that Jews have always been sort of pushed outside, have never really been allowed to live in just as full citizens, almost never throughout their history. There are always some restrictions placed on Jews. And this has really spurred to some degree Jewish creativity. So you're extrapolating that to say that within the Jewish community itself, it does make sense that these people here that have been through so much in Central Europe, where I am in Krakow, where you are in Budapest, that have such a different Jewish experience than the people that grow up and go to Jewish day school in New York City or in Chicago, Los Angeles, or in such a Jewish environment like Israel, that there would be a particular creativity here because to maintain their Jewish identity, they have already been through so much.
You know, well, for a little Torah, because I am a rabbi after all. First, I love the people in New York and the day school guys and LA and Cleveland in particular, and all sorts of other places, in Boston, where, you know,
don't forget Boston.
All my sports teams reside, even the ones that play on the margin of the rules. But it says in the Torah, in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, that it gives us our mission statement. We are going to be an Am Segula, a treasured people. Treasured people, not the richest, best, smartest. Treasured, something that was as old. It's a long relationship. It's from a long time ago. We have this long relationship from Abraham. And then we're going to be a Goy Kadosh. Goy Kadosh, a kind of a holy nation, a separated, a distinctive nation. And then the one most important for this is called Mamlechet Kohanim. We're going to be the kingdom of priests. We're going to be on the margin. We're going to be like the priests that are going to channel certain energy in and certain energy out. And that is that's a fantastic task. It's like the avant-garde, you know? That's what I feel. We're in the avant-garde. So the avant-garde means we're in front of the march, you know, where the people that are going ahead. Those people often get killed. All right. We're good to the word, you know. Sometimes they don't make any money until after they're dead, like the Impressionists. Okay. But they have a life of enormous pressured creativity. All right, it's attractive.
So, you know, I like to call it, I'm not sure if it was me that said it, but I always call it Budapest. To me, it's like the Upper West Side of Europe, of Central Europe. In other words, it's really the kind of the heart and soul, or the one beyond that. It's the one Jewish community really of any large size in this part of the world. So you lived in one for a long time on the Upper West Side, on Riverside, and now you live in the other. So compare and contrast life in the Upper West Side of New York. And I don't mean your professional life and UJA and all that, but just in terms of living, of walking around to Budapest, because you love Budapest.
I love Budapest. I have to say I do. I love the Upper West Side. I love my minion. I love Columbia. I love the Jewish Theological Seminary. You know, I had lots of friends, and my kids grew up there. It was a wonderful time. There's not one thing I can really criticize, but I did do it. You know, I did it for more than 30 years. Annie and I lived happy life there. Budapest also has that, though. You know, we just sat and had a coffee in front of our house at the cafe, and the Jews walk by you, you know, like, you know, we know the people, they know each other. There's a certain sense of community intensity here, and a certain sense of friendliness. And the bookstore down the block it's all Jewish books in it. You know, I don't know. I feel like there's a certain sense of home.
Like the Upper West Side?
Yeah, I know. I'm from Brookline. I'm from the leafy suburbs, but I know I think my kid that's on this call, Bria, once asked me why we lived on the Upper West Side. And at that very moment, about 25 or 30 short Jewish guy with beards walked by. And I said, oh, this is our tribal homeland. You know, this is where people that look like me live, the Upper West Side of New York. So in Budapest, this is where people that live, that look like me, this is where they live. And you feel that here. You know, it feels, in my neighborhood, I think maybe there are 30 or 40,000 Jews. You feel it. I like the Jews. It's very in to say, oh, the Jews, they drive you crazy. I'm not one of those people. I love the Jews. Like Menachem Begin once said, I love the Jews I love the Jews I hate, I love the Jews. I love the Jews.
Michael, you were a guru. I'll call it a guru. I'm going to use the word guru to many of Jewish New York's most active, most influential lay leaders. And now you're in your project, which of course I want to talk to you about, Tarbut, is you're here in Central Europe. Really, the main mission of your project is to develop lay leadership. So obviously lay leadership is something you've thought a lot about. You've had experience by really being, in your role at UJA with, you at the beating heart of lay leadership in New York City, which is the beating heart of the Jewish world, or the American Jewish world at least. So what makes a good lay leader, and what values are you trying to impart, and what are the challenges of doing that here in Central Europe, where we don't have that tradition, or maybe we do have that tradition, but it might have been the tradition sort of with a 75-year break?
First of all, I don't really need to answer the question to the people that are on this call. They are the lay leaders, Tina Newman and Deanne and Sue Ellen and on and on. These are the people, and my mother, Alav Shalom, may she rest in peace. My mother was in the middle of her life, stopped being a leader of the United Fund, which was the Boston, communal fund. And she said, I want to do things with Jews and I want to do them internationally. I want to do them in Israel. And so she did. She became a board member of the JDC, and she became a board member of the CJP of Boston, the Combined Jewish Philanthropy. And I think just before she died, I asked her, what are you most proud of? She said, of course, the family and all that, but that involvement, and she said, you go to work for the Jewish community and you get paid. I go to the work for the Jewish community and I pay, but we both go to work for the Jewish community. And that's, and I think of my mother as really a model in that way. One of the things she did was a program in Boston called 13 Thursdays, which was basically an education program. 13 Thursday mornings with about 150 women get together and they learn about social service agencies, and they learn about the Jewish world and the Jewish agency and the JDC. It made an enormous difference, and even Jewish texts later on in her life, but not too early. That was only like an afterthought. And those lay leaders put their whole heart and soul in the lay professional partnership, right? People that do it for their work and really invest themselves and do all the boring stuff, and the lay leaders that are willing to commit themselves together. One alone, I think, is not very strong, but together, very strong, very strong. Central and Eastern Europe. All right. There are very few lay leaders in Poland and in Hungary. The communists crushed that. They said, we're gonna have centralized authority. We're gonna tell you what to do, and you'll do it our way, and you'll shut up. So now, 30 years after the end of communism, it's time for this dynamic partnership between people who are creative. They're venture capitalists. They do design firms. They're lawyers. They're entrepreneurs. They're all sorts of things, to bring those skills to the institutions of, so far, Budapest and Warsaw, and contribute them at a level which both enriches the community and enriches the people.
I believe you have a participant from Krakow as well.
I love the participants from Krakow. Pavel. Well, Pavel is a leader of a group of professors and has a fantastic perspective, and is a real intellectual and an academic, and writes books in Polish and in French and things like that. The Jewish community needs him. I think they really need him, and I think that he can bring a tremendous amount of vision and spirit to the Jewish community that to take us to the next level. It's one thing to wake up again as a Jewish community. It's another thing to let your voice be heard, both in a written way and in a oral.
So what do you need to teach them?
So a lot of the people in the program have had a sporadic Jewish education. When I mean sporadic, I mean everything from every once in a while they learn things. They went to summer camp to nothing. So they did a study of leadership of corporations in America, and they found out that your vision of the future was directly correlated to your understanding of your past. So one thing I can do to get a vision of the future is to teach people about our past. And then there is the simple joy of doing Jewish text, the simple activity. So one of the challenges of the Jewish world right now, maybe I think the biggest challenge is, I'm a religious Jew. If you ask me what I do for being Jewish, I can tell you. I go to shul on Shabbos morning, I read the Torah, you can basically predict what I do and you would be right.
Oh.
But
You're full of surprises, Michael Paley.
All right. Some surprises, but I also do all the regular stuff. I'm a regular, I'm a rabbi. If you think about a rabbi, I'm it. So, but in order to do the rest of the stuff, to be for the secular Jewish community, people that don't have a ready-made Jewish set of behaviors, what do? If you run the JCC of Krakow, you're Jewish all the time. But how many Jewish jobs are there in Krakow? You have one, the rabbi has another, Avi Balma comes, he has another. There are about 10, But suppose you're not one of those 10, then what do you do? That's the question. What I can do is at least I can encourage people to try and explore the answer to that question.
So besides getting people up to speed in terms of their Jewish knowledge, which I think is good for everybody. I mean, I consider myself fiercely secular, but I believe that everybody should have certain Jewish knowledge that is basic, I think, for everybody to have, which includes Hebrew and being able to read the Torah and knowing how to pray. To me, are basic things, whatever your beliefs are. But beyond just getting these people's Jewish literacy up to a certain level, what skills, like what do they need to understand in terms of their relationship with an institution? Because as you very well know, for many years, the idea has been there are Jewish institutions like the Joint, like World Jewish Relief, like all these different things that come in and they give to these needy communities. And then these people the role of these people is to receive from the mothership. But now you're essentially saying they need to learn how to be, not only to give back, but to be part of the decision-making process and to take some of who they are and to lead and to be and to have influence there. So how do you do that?
I don't think motherships is a good idea. I don't think that it was a good idea in Star Wars. I think that was good. And motherships is a pleasant.
You're referring to the Death Star?
The Death Star also, okay, I'm glad the Empire struck back, but
it's good for the Empire.
The third kind, encounter. What was it called?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Close Encounters, mothership. All right, I like motherships. But we're not a mothership group. We're a worldwide network of resilient organizations and communities, and the world Jewish community needs the voice of the Jews of Krakow, the Jews of Warsaw, the Jews of Budapest, and others. It's not like the JDCs. They're a wonderful organization. I love working for the JDC, but the JDC needs to also learn. I'm not here to teach my wisdom so that people can look like an American board. I'm here to learn and listen, also have a fantastic time. Of course, let's admit that, eat really good food, have a fantastic apartment with the Danube view. All right, besides that, that's the most important thing. Hang out with my friend Jonathan. But beyond that fact, I'm hoping, I'm scheming, I'm praying, I'm cajoling the people in these programs to develop a leadership style that will be uniquely theirs, because we need it. Remember, there was a bunch of guys living in Odessa. I can say some of their names: Bialik, Chadaam, Jabotinsky, Pinsker. They were just living in Shalom Aleichem. They were living in Odessa. They were in their 20s, and all of a sudden they said, we got to do a different thing here. We can't do what the mothership wants us to do anymore. We have to rediscover. And so they rediscovered. That's the beginning of Zionism. They didn't agree with each other. They fought about it. Different kinds of Zionism came out, and yet then they finally went across the sea through the Ottoman Empire. They went to Israel and they founded the next vision of Jewish life. This is this is an amazing thing that Eastern European Jews did, right? Think of all of this. There's a fantastic Jewish thinker from Warsaw. Sad to say, he died in the Holocaust, named Hillel Zeitlin. And Hillel Zeitlin, he was a crazy man in some ways. He's a secular Jew who became a religious Jew, except he liked to smoke cigars on Shabbos, I think. And because he said, I like to smoke cigars on Shabbos. I'm not trying to be the same kind of religious Jew that I inherited. I'm trying to be the next Jew. And I feel that the next boards, the next leadership, the next thinkers, they're going to come from this place. I'm really inspired by it.
So so let's talk about the program. You find funding from people in the United States who've been very generous to believe in your mission here and understand the need of Central Europe and how not only for this community, but how doing a program like this can have an influence on the whole Jewish world. And you go through a process and you pick brilliant up and coming people with much to offer from this part of the world. And you expose them to great Jewish thinkers, bring them from Ruth Calderon and Yosef Klein Halevi and all the sort of all-star, the A-team in the Jewish world. And you're trying to get them to understand Jewish values and have a certain Jewish knowledge. And for them to, I understand, to feel a certain responsibility that they themselves to change their dynamic between how they see their interaction with the Jewish world and Jewish organizations.
Well, I don't want to use the word responsibility as it's an obligation. I think it's a privilege. I think it's a life experience. I think it's enormously enchanting and enriching. I have a big thing to say, which I'll say in a very short thing, but I could speak about it for a long time. I believe in the re-enchantment of the world, and I believe that the Jewish community has a lot to do with that. If you think about the 19th century, the people that had read Hegel, the philosopher, they started what they would understand to be the bureaucratic society. Just, the religion would give you your role in life and you would do it, and it had no spiritual edge in it, right? The Jews were always against that. People like Buber, Rosenzweig, and Hermann Cohen, and people like that, they always said, no, we need an enchanted life. This is a comment by Max Weber. We need to bring enchantment back into the world. When I look at my friend Ornstein and the JCC of Krakow, why do people want to come to the JCC of Krakow? Because it's a kind of enchantment in that place, Very
good Wi-Fi.
What's that?
Very good Wi-Fi.
And, I don't degrade Wi-Fi as pieces of enchantment. You get a lot of good stuff over Wi-Fi. Whatever is, hey, when I was at Dartmouth, I bought the best computers so that Jews could come in. But what they did after they found that I had good computers that they could go online with, they met each other and they started to learn each other and they started to create and they started to do all the other stuff. But of course, the Wi-Fi is important.
But Michael, tell me, explain enchantment. What do you mean by enchantment here? It's not clear to me or obvious to me.
So I am interested in the Jewish life of engagement and encounter, right? I don't, in some ways, the end of the Hegelian prescription was communist society, right? If you read about communism, it actually sounds fantastic. If you went to a communist country, I went to Poland and to Hungary the first time in 1977. Annie and I traveled to Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, Slovakia, and then Czechoslovakia, and through Hungary and Yugoslavia, and we found that the societies lacked a certain, I don't know, a flavor of life, a certain sense of expectation, a certain sense of flair,
optimism, hope,
optimism, and also self-exploration. They were afraid. They were afraid someone was watching them. They were afraid that they were out of line in some ways, even though we all know that being out of line is one of the great joys of life. So the Jews are good at being out of line. They're good at being a little on the edge. It's the same thing you started with. So an enchanted life is where that's encouraged. Sometimes when I go to the classes, even in Poland and in Hungary, even now, one of the A-team teachers comes and they'll say, they didn't respond much. And I say to myself, they were brought up not responding. Yeah. They were brought up to shut up and find out what the right answer is and then go home. we all know that the fray, the argument, the energy, some of the people in this call were in my classes at UJA, we all got to talk a lot.
So what I found living here, and I've been here 19 years, is that the role of communism has, I mean, it might sound self-evident, but the effect of, there's a great effect of communism on a society and people and the way they interact and what it has done to really 2 generations of people in terms of what it took on a basic level, the skills that we use to succeed in all different areas of our life, whether that's business or socially, among friends, in any sense, creatively, are almost, to some degree, almost the opposite skills for what you were rewarded for during communism. So you have a generation, suddenly communism ends and the world has changed, but those people were good at this world that was the last world. And to some degree, you're dealing with people who are kind of on the edge, who kind of grew up in post-communist Poland, generally speaking, but the values that they got and the world they grew up in was created by communism. The school, the education, the curriculum they got, and the parents, their parents were a product of that system. So it's really fascinating in terms of the challenges that I just see in my daily life, living here for a long time, almost 20 years. But it must also be for you, one, as a new resident of a communist country, pretty new, couple of years.
Right, post-communist country.
But also, post-communist country, exactly. But also in terms of that you have this project where you're trying to lead people to be sort of open-minded when they're a product, they're sort of, to some degree, they're naturally open-minded because people are, and Jews are, and especially being in this post-communist society, you want to explore, but they're also products of a society that taught you the opposite, and not to seek enchantment.
Yeah, well, I think that's the last line is what I would say. That's to seek enchantment, right? The post-communist world allowed us to seek enchantment. It's a scary thing to do. You need encouragement, you need support, and there's a huge reward for it. I would say there's a wonderful psychologist named Joseph Keegan. He wrote a book called The Evolving Self. And he says, life is lived as a helix, right? As an upward draft helix. And the 2 poles of the helix, a helix has poles. One side is holding on and the other side is letting go. Well, the communist time was very much a holding on time. People were tight. We lived, when we went to Romania, some of the people, they said, we'd love to put you up, but we're too afraid. The police will come and arrest us. When we were in Bulgaria, they did arrest. We stayed we were kids. We were in our early 20s. Some people said you can sleep in our spare room. And then they got arrested in the morning for doing that. It was a very tight holding on society. If you're going to live the helical life, you have to also be in the letting go part. And the enchantment is, you can't let go all the time, then there's nothing. So can we design a Jewish world where the learning part that you're in favor of the learning part, Hebrew and things like that, but you grew up in a religious house. If you didn't grow up in a religious house, you didn't get the raw skills to do that. So can you give people the raw skills, the impetus, and the best teachers to maybe make it a little faster and more enjoyable than usual, so that you can hold on enough to allow yourself to let go? That seems to me the Jewish project.
To me, what's interesting about your project and you coming here is that you took a look at this part of the world and you spoke to, all of those who were the ones to speak to, and all the leaders here in the community and non-leaders and everybody. And the idea that you came up to with the greatest good that you could do would be to develop lay leadership. So I'm just fascinated by that idea. It could have been something completely different. That's what you saw as the potential to be the greatest agent of change for you, would be to develop lay leadership here in Central Europe.
Yeah, the beginning when I first came here, I thought I would build a rabbinical college because I thought that people needed religious leaders, and I went to Sarvash, and I went to, and you could maybe. It's not a stupid idea. It's a good idea in many ways, but
yeah, you're a little bit ahead of time with that one.
So my friend Josh Spinner from Berlin, he built a rabbinical college. Some kind of seminary. We've known each other since he was a student at Columbia, and I admire the attempt. But I do not think that revival of synagogues right now is going to be the next step towards rebuilding these communities. They're too alien. It's the wrong language. It's the wrong prayers. It's just wrong, you know. Better a coffee house where people come and learn and sing and paint, you know. We've never been an artistic community until abstract expressionism. Okay, so in our group, we teach abstract expressionism. You know, Rothko and Nevelson and Gustafson, because I want at least them to feel we have an artistic tradition. It's ours. It belongs to us. We just couldn't do it until we developed one that was consistent with Jewish life. So I went to the lay leaders. I think the lay leaders are the next key step. Also, the other thing about that is that there were fantastic professionals like you and Julia Fritz and Budapest, and I can name, I don't know, Sasha Friedman. I can name probably 100 fantastic Jewish professionals in Central and Eastern Europe. Really, 100. But I couldn't find very many lay leaders to support them in what they wanted to do. So I thought that was the next thing.
So all of these things cost money, a lot of money. So, you know, philanthropy, the Jewish world is expensive. There's all discussions these days about the cost of day school and the burden placed on Jewish families. But those of us who are so involved in fundraising, as you know, for when you have projects, you have to raise money for it. I have a center that I need to raise money for, everything from the lights being on to Holocaust survivors being taken care of. How is it that, how is it possible to have such a focus on money and on the need to raise money without money becoming really the key? Like, this is something that I find myself challenged by. Remembering that money here in this context is only a tool, and not being too focused on the money when you have to be to some degree to be able to do what you're doing.
You know, I've raised, I suppose I've been involved with a lot of fundraising in my life, from universities to the Jewish community. I always feel privileged to do it. I always feel like I can sit in front of a person and say, this is a project that's not only close to my heart, but I think you'll enjoy doing it. I've never had one person in all the years I've ever raised money, and I've been a pretty successful at it, has ever come to me and said, you know, I didn't like the project in the end, I'd like my money back.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's come to Jonathan Ornstein and said, you know, that was a bill of goods, please send me back the money. Or I didn't really feel like supporting a Friad nursery school, send me back the money. Never. I never got that. In fact, I've gotten only the opposite. I've gotten a lot of thank you notes from people that sent me money. I sent them a thank you note. Sometimes they send me back one. They said, I'm just so honored to be part of this project. I feel this was why I made the money in the first place. And by the way, just a comment on that. A lot of people, you know, that I've worked with in my life, they said, we're really good at making money. Okay, we don't, but no one tells you when you make a lot of money, why? What was the point of it? You know, was it just so I could be rich and buy a house and have a car? There's gonna be more than that. And I said, I think there is more than that. You can help people, and you can help people around the world, and I can help you help those people. And they're always grateful, and I'm always grateful. I'm really grateful to it. And I love the people. You know, if you think that it's all about the money, then you don't really like the people, because a lot of people say no. And then you'll say, oh, you said no. But it never bothers me when people say no. They're just waiting for the right opportunity.
No one says no to you. I'm overwhelmed. I have to tell you, I'm much newer to this than you are, but I'm overwhelmed by the generosity and thoughtful generosity. Not just writing a check, but thoughtful generosity of the Jewish world on Jewish issues and Jewish causes, like we're involved in, or non-Jewish causes. But it's really something that has been eye-opening for me, the generosity of people, and how, and I completely would agree with you that how people are so willing to give, and they see it as a privilege to be able to be involved in projects that you allow them or help them know about or bring to them. And once you understand that you're not just schnorring, you're not just asking people for money, that you're giving them an opportunity, and that this is the deal. We're all in this together. The Jewish people, right, as well as anybody, understands that this guy is the rich guy and this guy is the not, but we're all kind of in it together. Maybe we do a better job than most other people. I don't want to say everyone, or peoples of understanding that. And when we all understand that we're in these different positions and we all have our roles, then it becomes a little bit easier that you understand that you're not, asking, somebody up on the mountain for money, that people are happy to help and do what they need to do.
I have this story in my head. I was in high school, and we went to our annual Thanksgiving Day Brookline Newton game. The Brookline Newton game, the Turkey Day Classic, as we used to call it, only in Brookline and Newton. Brookline and Newton are wealthy suburbs, and with lots of Jews. And so we went to the game. My father would always come to the game. And that year had been an earthquake in Italy. And a guy was walking around with a small garbage can to collect donations for the earthquake victims. And my father put his hand into his wallet. My father's long gone now, so I can tell the story. And he took his wallet out and he took all the money and put it in the basket. And it was a substantial amount of money in the late 60s. And I said, I think I just said like this, whoa, just like that. And he looked at me and he said, don't you know how lucky we are? Don't you know how grateful we should be for our lives? Of course I should give. If I have more money, I give more money. Of course I should do that. He said, at the end of his life, he said, what was the best thing I did was that. Not just in the earthquake, but he supported people as much as he could, both through his work and through his philanthropy. He wasn't a mega donor, he was a significant donor. And that was what he thought was the most important thing of his life. My father, there was just one more thing about my father. There was no crowd too small or snow too high or distance too long for my father to travel to help Russian Jews as they showed up in Boston. He just would go anywhere. He talked to two people in Lexington on a snowy day if he had to, because he said, when my father came from Russia to America and my mother, the Jews took care of them, and I'm going to make sure I do the same. There was something so transformative to me that he could do that.
Of all the money, and not that it's given in any serious amounts, but you write, someone like me writes a check here and there, and organizations that I believe in and that I respect, and their missions, and in the Jewish philanthropic world often looks very different from the inside than it does from the outside. And I have to say that something really, a light bulb went off over my head in terms of giving and the meaning of giving. I was in Israel a year ago, and I went in. It was around Hanukkah. It was this past Hanukkah, and I went into Roladin, the bakery Roladin with all the outrageous cupcakes or anything. And Kasha and I were looking at these cupcakes, and I hear a kid, young guy, not a kid, in the early 20s, who's asking, he asked the price of one of the donuts. And then he mentioned to his friend, he had an accent, South African accent, and he goes, oh, wow, do you know how much that is in Rand? And so I bought my donut, and I said, oh, I'd like to pick a donut and buy it for the kid. And he was so overwhelmed. Telling the medical student and this, and I was like, yeah, I know the currency these days, the Rand, it's really weak. He couldn't believe, and it was like $3 or $4, whatever it was for the donut. And I walked around the rest of that day in the best mood. I felt like so wonderful, and this, that medical student, and he's this, and he's like, help him, and he's, oh my God, we'll stay in touch. It's like, oh my God, I bought him a donut. And I realized that these people who, if I'm buying someone a donut and feeling so good, then these people who can, people are friends, the Schwartzes, who gave us, a substantial gift to open a preschool. What do you feel? What kind of nachas? Yeah. How do you feel walking around when you're in a college and a dorm and a preschool, and you have money for survivors and everything? You have sort of having moments like that help you be on the other side, because sometimes you can really start to feel like a schnorr, always constantly being in this asking mode. But when you understand how it makes other people feel, I guess it really makes it easier.
You feel grateful. And gratitude is one of the great feelings in life. Gratitude. I try and, people, when they come to shul, sometimes they say, what are all these prayers? Why does God need all this praise? I say, God doesn't need the praise. I need to praise God. I need at least to say, I'm grateful for all the goodness of my life. That's it. I don't think that God needs or probably hears or any of that stuff. But do I need to express gratitude? I do express gratitude. Yes, I do need that. I do need that. And I feel other people, and people that give money, and people that collect money, and people that sort money, and people that organize money, and people that do all the administration behind the money, and the people that spread the money around, all those people, they all have gratitude and they all should feel grateful.
Absolutely. We haven't even gotten 1/3 through the way through my list. But before we go, will you come back for another episode?
As long as I can keep doing it from my living room, I'm happy to come all the time.
You can do it from wherever you want. From wherever.
And
you
by
want.
the way, I would rather come to Krakow. Just last year, remember that we had an amazing day. Just a year ago now.
A year ago we did.
Just a year ago, we did the ride. My daughter Bria did the entire ride.
A year ago tomorrow.
A year ago tomorrow, and then on
Friday.
Sunday, we dedicated this
weekend
art project, and we did it right beneath the tempest. There was this huge storm right over our heads. And Poland is a place with huge storms, but also with great goodness.
That was one of the more intense weekends that I've had in a very long time. So before we let you go for this part, I do have to ask you, I never let anybody go. I don't have to ask you Latka Hamantash, because we understand which side you are, what side you're on there. I do need to ask you though, what are your 3 favorite films? My
3 favorite films: Groundhog Day, of course, then and Groundhog Day.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, what's the other one I can't remember? Groundhog Day. No.
Yeah, no.
Casablanca, because it takes place from the New York Cafe from Hungary, you know, a most amazing film, and Star Wars, because it's real.
Groundhog Day, Casablanca, and Star Wars.
Star Wars, because Star Wars is mythology. Also, I think, what's the King of Hearts? I always love that, you know. I have only like 300 favorite movies.
Well, that was pretty good giving me the 3.
But Groundhog, the most spiritual day. It's the most spiritual one. What would you do if you keep on living the same day again and again, and you start to finally get it that you're supposed to improve in that day? I figure it's the Yom Kippur film, you know? You live that day every year and you see how you did, you know? It's going to be the same thing, the same music, Sonny Bono on the radio, the whole thing, and you try and improve your life every year. I figure Bill Murray, he's the guy.
Tzaddik, Bill Murray.
Tzaddik. He becomes a tzaddik. First he tries to kill himself. I don't want to give away the movie, you know.
Don't give it away. For those of us who haven't seen it over and over again, maybe there are some.
Yeah. Also Shawshank Redemption, love that movie.
All about the hope.
Any movie that has redemption in it has to be good. And The Godfather. And The Godfather, because all life is The Godfather.
All life is Godfather. Everything.
All life. There's hardly anything that is neither in the Gemara nor The Godfather.
No question. Rabbi Michael Paley, you'll come back?
I'll come back.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
And if they let me, I'll even come to Krakow.
Yeah, we'll do it in the studio together.
Yeah, so far they don't let me, but if they let me, I'm coming.
Be well, my friend. Love to Annie.
Love to Kasha. And to all of you who listened.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye. And are we having fun? That's the most important thing.